Page 76, Vienna, city of my dreams. Now, just how complicated do you want to make this? Okay, there's two ways of looking at this. You look at it like, I just want to play the thing, all right, keep it simple. Or you can say, I know I got some more things to learn as I get better, and the easier things like this give me a chance to explore some of those more advanced techniques. So I'm going to try and explain a few of the more advanced techniques here, and if you're not ready or you're not interested, skip them. That's fine, it's up to you, but at least they're here in case you decide you want to do something with them. Now, when we finger things in piano, we like to try and finger the melody in a way that we can feel the melody. That is, we play it legato, we just at the beginning here, the melody's the top note. You notice there in the last two measures on those C's, it's 3/5. Okay, and that's good. That's good practice. I like that. At the beginning, you're starting with 4 and you're playing it again with the 4. That's okay, and I mean, it's okay. It's not like every time you have a repeated note you have to use a different finger. That's not the case. And here, the same finger works fine. Second line, we want to feel the melody, no matter what else is going on, all right? Well, it gets tricky in the right hand when you want to feel the melody and you got other notes to play. At the beginning again, the top note's the melody, I got notes to play. So I'm going to connect the melody. Even though I'm using pedal, I don't care, I'm going to use the finger's going to do it. I'm going to connect the melody even though I can't connect the other notes. So it's here. Okay, now we have a little problem with this, and that in the last measure, on those quarter notes going down, it leads into an F sharp on the next measure. I can't connect the G and the F sharp together if I play them with the thumb. Doesn't work. But feeling wise, that's how they should go. It just go down to here. You feel that flow, right? It's like a counter melody. They even put a slur on it for you, like a phrase, so you want to connect them. Well, you can't do it without fingering. So what do? All right, well, you change the fingering, obviously. Now, there is no easy fingering here for it, all right? So we're getting a little more advanced. I would suggest you simply do the 3, 2, 1, and when you hit the 1, immediately substitute 2, so you can use 1 again, so you can connect them. All right? The little fingers holding down shouldn't be a problem, like so, all right? Don't substitute a finger with your hand up here near the fall board. You got to do it out here. Another way to do it would be to just use the index finger to play the F sharp. So it's here. And then you use, on the second line, first measure, it's 2 and 4. And just, you can keep the 2 and 4, or you can go back to the 1 and 3 on the next one. See, there's ways of fingering this so you can feel the melody, and then when you have a counter melody like this, you can feel those too. So we're just adjusting it to allow for that. Last line on page 76, start at the beginning of the first measure. You have a 4, 2, and then a 1. Now, in the last measure there on page 76, I recommend you finger the first eighth notes, 3 and 5. Okay, the measure prior to this, all right? The B and the G, the G and the B, I think is 1 and 3. Okay, and can you go from 1 and 3 to 3 and 5? It would help if you could. You may have to look down at the keyboard for it. But it puts you in position for these eighth notes. Right? There's an easier way. And that is, remember the idea that when they put notes in these staves, it's more or less for convenience in most cases. You don't have to use that hand to play those notes. Just because it's in the top staff, you don't have to use the right hand to play the notes. or whatever. Either hand can do them. It's whatever is convenient. And I do this a lot. In that last measure down there, I would play those first eighth notes in the right hand with 1 and 3, because that's where I'm at. Because it's easy. So the last two measures, it's like so. Well, the eighth notes, what do? Well, the left hand's here. So I'm going to use the left hand to play the first two eighth notes, because it's already there. Then all I got to do is play the last 3 eighth notes with the right hand, and I'm here, so I can go here. So it's problem solved. I do this a lot in music, because so it's the last 2 measures slowly would be here. Because on that first eighth note in the last measure, you got to get off of it because there's a break in the phrase, and we want a little silence between them. So it's okay, and that's what I recommend you do. Page 77 is a lot like page 76. So if you work out on 76, you can use it on 77 until you get down to the third line. Look at that. We have a 1, 2, 1. And then they want here, okay, we're connecting the melody, that's the idea. Sort of, not working very well. So let's take a look at this. Right hand, 1, 2. Connect the melody with your fingers even though you can't connect the bottom note. When you get to the third measure, the pedal's going to help you out here. I suggest you use this fingering on that third measure. First chord is 1 and 2. I suggest you use 1 and 2 again. And the reason for that is because I want my hand in this position. And I want it there as soon as possible because it accommodates everything else. So I'm going to go from here to here. Because that's it. I'm there. I'm where I want to be. So the first 2 beats is here and here. And then I can do 1, 2, 4, and then 2, 4, 5. Now, the pedal's down, and for show or whatever, if you want to do it the way they're doing. And move your hand on each one for flashiness or whatever, I don't know. Go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a fingering style that I use. I move my hands as little as possible. Then in the last line, we're okay until we get to the end, the dotted half note. You don't have to move your hand as far if you'll go from the quarter note to here, 2, 3, 5 on the last note. It's a little awkward, but it works. You can also finger it the way there. The last note is arpeggiated, the last chord in the right hand. And I will play the bottom note with the left hand note. And I'll play all of those notes in the right hand fairly quickly because they got to be done before the left hand starts those eighth notes. And that's the right hand. The left hand just has the chords. The primary chords, big deal. Except for the bottom at the last measure on 76 when I gave it 2 eighth notes. And you want to lift up a little silence between them because you have a phrase in the left hand, right? Right. On page 77, third line down, last measure, I'm going to hold the quarter note fermata, 2 counts instead of 1, and in the last line, the last 2 measures, look at this. Well, the measure right before you have a thumb on the D. Notice that? Well, let's just start with the last line, the whole line. You have 4 here, and then a 5 here, and now a 1, and then this arpeggio. legato, okay? Play it, even though the pedal's down, finger it legato. If you do the scale or the videos on arpeggios, this sort of thing is easy. Assuming I have those videos up yet, because I'm a little slow in getting them up. The fermata at the end I'm going to hold for 2 counts instead of 1. Pedal wise, at the beginning they say ped ad lib. You see the words underneath the bottom staff? That means the pedal, do it any way you want. Ad lib means just do it, whatever you think, okay? I'd like to give you a little bit more guidance on the pedal than that. So I'm going to recommend that you pretty much do a legato pedal, change the beat on each measure, at each measure, except for certain times when I'm going to point them out. So at the beginning we have the foot, I'm going to play the notes first and then the pedal goes down, play the first measure, then I'm going to play the notes in the next measure and I'm going to change the pedal. Again. Now in the last measure, you'll have to see what you think. Does it sound okay to you if you keep the pedal down that whole measure? If not, lift the pedal up. You'll have to decide how you want to do that. And then in the second line, again, a legato pedal throughout the whole second line. Now remember, we want to break in the phrases, so you'll have to pedal accordingly. Now the third line, same thing. Legato pedal throughout the whole third line except for the last measure. In the last measure, I would lift the pedal up right before I play the A flat in the left hand. And you see the fingering in the left hand is a 1, and they have a dash, and then a 1. They're telling you use the same finger, you slide it down. They don't need the dash, but that's kind of nice to connect them. And then in the last line, you do the first 2 measures. I would not pedal those because you'll smear them. And then the third measure, you can pedal that, but I lift it up on the third beat. Of course, I don't pedal the last measure of the page because those 8th notes, we want to hear those clearly. And then on page 77, first 2 lines are like 76, more or less. So in the third line, don't pedal the first 2 measures. Now pedal the last 2 measures like they're showing. The caesura, the railroad tracks, the 2 little lines there in that last measure of the third line, I'm going to pause for 1 count. That is complete silence for 1 count. It's like adding an extra beat to the measure. And then I continue. Now in the last line, I can pedal the first measure and then the last measure. So I would legato pedal the last line fine. It's fine. It works. And at the end, the pedal and the hands all come up at the same time. You can do the dynamics and all that and have fun with it. And once you can play it, now then you start trying to make music out of it. You interpret it, you feel it, you internally, mentally sing it to yourself, you know, da 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 type thing, you know. Try and make it musical, not just playing notes. However, let's play this together slowly, where we will just play notes to make sure you have the notes and the pedaling and all that junk you're supposed to have. So I'm going to give us 3 counts, so let's go. It's the left hand, right hand, left hand, some hand, middle hand, I don't know. Foot's on the pedal. Here we go. 1, ready, go.